The case mentioned today occurred in Wengyuan County, Shaoguan City, Guangdong Province. On the night of August 11, 2015, the Wengyuan County Public Security Bureau Command Center received a strange alarm call. The breathing of the caller could be faintly heard on the phone. It is usually not easy to hear the sound of breathing when making a phone call. The sound of breathing can be clearly heard here, which proves that the amplitude of breathing is relatively large. But the man said nothing, and the call was disconnected a minute later. The police also felt puzzled, but the person didn't say anything, and you didn't know what it was. No matter how you asked, there was no response, so they could only register and record the call as an invalid police report. Just as the police officer put down the phone, in a residential building in Wengyuan County, a woman named Yi Xiaoling picked up the phone. She has been uneasy for the past few hours because her husband Huang Guiping has lost contact. Huang Guiping is an entrepreneur in Shaoguan City. The two have been married for more than 10 years, and Huang Guiping has never failed to answer the phone. On the morning of August 12, Huang Guiping still didn't come back. Yi Xiaoling realized something was wrong and immediately rushed to the construction site where her husband was working. As soon as she pushed open the iron gate outside the construction site, Yi Xiaoling was stunned by the scene in front of her. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Huang Guiping lying on the ground, covered in blood, and quickly called the police. After receiving the alarm call from Yi Xiaoling, the command center immediately notified the Longxian police station near the scene to investigate. After arriving at the scene, the police discovered that the matter was far more serious than imagined. Lying in a pool of blood was Huang Guiping, and there were bloodstains on the road. Following the direction of the bloodstains, when the police investigated the workshed, they found another female deceased named Su Feng on the sofa. The Criminal Investigation Brigade of the Wengyuan County Public Security Bureau immediately rushed to the scene of the crime. The crime scene was a temporary and simple work shed located next to a shopping plaza in Wengyuan County, next to a farmland and very open. Usually, except for workers working on the construction site, few people come here. The police quickly confirmed the identities of the two deceased men. The male deceased was Huang Guiping, Yi Xiaoling's husband, and the female deceased was Huang Guiping's business partner Su Feng. After a preliminary autopsy, the medical examiner determined that the cause of death was a stab wound to the neck. The wound was particularly long and looked like it was caused by a slash. In addition to the fatal injuries on the necks of the two deceased persons, the forensic doctor also found multiple sharp injuries on Huang Guiping's face and body, which were most likely caused by the stabbing of Huang Guiping during his resistance. There were very obvious signs of a fight in the workshed, and there were messy bloodstains and footprints everywhere on the ground inside and outside the house, reflecting the fierce fight between the deceased and the murderer at that time. Technicians found that neither of the deceased were wearing shoes, and their shoes were placed next to the sofa. The police speculated that these shoes were dragged away by the murderer after the incident, or were they not wearing shoes at the time of the incident? The police saw that they were not worn because there was no blood on the shoes. Such a messy on-site environment is a huge challenge for surveyors. The technicians extracted the footprints inside and outside the house, not missing any clues. The barefoot footprints left at the scene were all left by the male deceased, Huang Guiping. According to the analysis of the footprints left on the ground, Huang Guiping tried to chase the murderer after being injured, while the female deceased Su Feng basically stayed in her original position and did not move much after being injured. Huang Guiping walked out of the room after being injured. When he came to the corridor, the blood trail was interrupted, and then he died in the corridor. Not far from where Huang Guiping lay, technicians found a fruit knife stained with blood. The police speculated that this was most likely the murder weapon left at the scene by the murderer. But after the autopsy, the medical examiner gave a different opinion. Because the deceased's wounds and bones were cut, they didn't look like the wounds caused by stabbings that we usually see. The fruit knife is not that powerful. It can at most cut off the skin, soft tissue, trachea and blood vessels, but it is impossible to cut off the bones. Based on the wounds on the neck of the deceased, the forensic doctor believes that the murderer used at least a kitchen knife or a knife larger than a kitchen knife when committing the crime. The fruit knife was probably used by the victim when resisting, which means it was probably yellow. Used in Guiping. After preliminary on-site investigation, the police did not find much except for a suspicious footprint and the fruit knife. How did the murderer kill these two adults at once? Was it committed by a single person or by multiple people? What were Huang Guiping and Su Feng doing in this work shed before the accident? Why aren't you even wearing any shoes? The police found that at the scene, the mobile phones of the two deceased people were still there, and the bag that the female deceased Su Feng usually carried was also there. The doors and windows of the workshed were in very good condition, and the locks showed no signs of being picked. Apart from the mess caused by the fighting, there were no signs of being disturbed in the room. According to forensic speculation, the victim died the night before. A man and a woman died under the same roof, which makes it easy for people to relate. So all kinds of rumors spread in Wengyuan County. The police learned that Huang Guiping and Su Feng were business partners and had been cooperating for 7 or 8 years. Their relationship had always been very close, and there had been some scandals between them. A man and a woman are in the same room at night. So, could it be because of feelings? Oops. Could it be that the two of them died in love? The police launched an investigation into the marital relationship of the two deceased persons. Huang Guiping and his wife Yi Xiaoling have been married for more than 10 years. The relationship has always been harmonious. According to Yi Xiaoling, she had been with Huang Guiping's sister on the day of the incident. That is, with my sister-in-law. Until the next morning when her husband's body was discovered. That's when I called the police. What about Su Feng? Su Feng's husband is Ding Limin. According to the survey, the police discovered that Ding Limin was married to Su Feng before. There was a failed marriage. During the process of identifying the body after the crime, Ding Limin still had some abnormal behaviors, which also attracted the attention of the police. Ding Limin arrived at the crime scene but had not yet entered the scene. When we were about 100 meters away, lying on the ground crying loudly. According to the police's recollections, when Ding Limin collapsed on the ground, didn't enter the house either. Didn't see the dead either. It is even less certain whether the deceased is his wife. Oops. Did he know that his wife had been killed when he cried? For normal people, you should at least confirm it. I still have a sense of luck in my heart. At this time, the police thought that Ding Limin was a little pretentious. So we began to regard him as a key investigation target to conduct investigation. However, after sorting out Ding Limin's activities before and after the incident, the police didn't find anything suspicious. Everywhere Ding Limin went on the day of the incident on the 11th, there was someone who could testify for him. Although Ding Limin himself did not have the time to commit the crime, but his suspicions still cannot be completely ruled out. Some policemen raised the possibility that could it be that he hired a murderer to kill someone? Someone also raised it. Since the two deceased people were in business, could they have made enemies with someone in the business? This is what caused misfortune. But all the speculations now are still just speculations. Lack of sufficient evidence to support. With the gradual in-depth investigation of the site, more clues surfaced. In the cell phone call records of Su Feng, the deceased woman, the police made a new discovery. Everyone, do you still remember the unanswered alarm call that Soyo Zero Command Center received at the beginning? That was what Su Feng hit. But throughout the call, Su Feng didn't even speak. At this time, the police speculated. Was she injured at that time? I can no longer make a sound. Su Feng called the police at 10:08 p.m. She was already dying at that time. Then the time the perpetrator committed the crime must have been before 10:08. According to this time point, police launched an investigation into surveillance cameras surrounding the crime scene. About 100 meters away, there is a probe. It just so happens that this probe is also functioning normally, because the incident occurred at night. This probe is not a high-definition one either, so the photos taken are still relatively blurry. After repeatedly watching the surveillance footage around 10:08, the police didn't find anything unusual. The police then pushed back the time point of the surveillance footage. At around 9:30 p.m., there is a suspicious figure entering the site of the probe. That person walks very slowly. Still alone. He didn't mean to chat with others either. Or something happened. Just walking around slowly and leisurely. At the same time, the police also found the female victim. The female victim first went to the crime scene. Then follow this and walk slowly and leisurely over there. Just behind the female victim. Then when we arrived near the crime scene, the male victim appears again. At 9:32. The female victim followed the male victim and walked towards the work shed. Of course, there was also a suspected suspect following behind. But the two victims probably didn't notice it. There are people behind. Subsequently, their figures disappeared into the shadows. This surveillance camera can't take any pictures. The police immediately reviewed the surveillance footage on the other side of the construction site. At 9:33, the dark workshop on the screen suddenly lit up. The two pieces of white light are compared with the daytime surveillance footage. I discovered that these two white lights were lights coming from the door and window of the second house. This means the victim has entered the room. This male victim. That is Huang Guiping. He's the owner of this shed. As for the female victim, she waited until the male victim. After Huang Guiping came to the work shed. Only then can she enter the work shed. So the police once again carefully studied and judged the surveillance footage between 10:07 and 10:09 when the crime occurred. The investigators believe, if the man wandering around and following the victim in the picture is the suspect, then we will definitely be able to capture his entry into the crime scene. So, is the person under surveillance the real murderer? Is he a professional killer hired by Su Feng's husband? Let's talk about it next. In surveillance video. 10 o'clock is the alarm time. A fleeting detail before and after. The police sharply captured a blurry black figure. Not long after entering. The lights turned black. This must have been a fight after the door was closed. The person who opened the door should be the suspicious man wandering near the scene. This discovery also confirmed the police's previous speculation. This man has serious suspicion of committing the crime. From the shadows of the screen, the investigator had a vague sense of this figure. Then he moved back quickly and entered the farmland next to the construction site. And then quickly fled the scene. From when the suspect enters the crime scene to when he leaves the scene. This light gets darker, brighter, and darker again. The interval between these light and shadow changes was less than 70 seconds. That is to say, the time to commit the crime is very short. The method of killing is clean and neat. Knife deadly. So the police wondered if this could be a professional killer. According to the scene investigation, there was a fierce fight between the murderer and the deceased. How did the murderer kill two people who were on guard in just 70 seconds? Do you remember? As we said in the previous program, the forensic doctor believed that the fatal injuries on the deceased could not have been caused by a fruit knife, because he did not have that much strength. But the forensic doctor then conducted an autopsy. After the autopsy, it was discovered that from the depth of the wound, it was indeed a stab wound. In other words, if the fruit knife was used to cut the body at an extremely fast speed, the strength can be formed. Based on the shape and depth of the wound, the forensic doctor also made a preliminary description of the suspect's physical characteristics. First of all, the murderer is very strong. He should be engaged in some physical labor or exercise regularly. But what is it that has the police confused? The suspicious man in the surveillance footage does not match the suspect's characteristics described by the forensic doctor. Judging from the video, this man was relatively thin. How could a man of this stature kill two men who were even stronger than him in a minute or two? Everyone became suspicious. Later, the police also tested the fruit knife and found the DNA of the two deceased people on the tip of the knife. The DNA of another person was also detected in the bloodstains left on the handle of the knife. Hey, this proves that the third person was also bleeding at that time, which was most likely left by the suspect. Peripheral on-site investigation quickly confirmed the forensic conclusion. Based on the surveillance video, the police determined the suspect's escape route. Technicians found a lot of dripping bloodstains on the ground, and traced the bloodstains to the farmland. After passing the farmland, they followed the path and entered a village. Not far after entering the village, the bloodstains disappeared. The police judged that this was probably where the suspect was hiding. The police immediately launched an investigation in the village. Soon, a motorcycle driver provided important information to the police. The driver said that on the night of the incident, he had taken an injured man to the hospital. What was another detail he mentioned? As for this person, he asked the master to take him to a small clinic at first, but it was too late. Most of the small clinics on the street were closed. There was no other way, so he went to the emergency department of the County People's Hospital. The police immediately rushed to Wengyuan County People's Hospital and checked the registration records. They found that at around 11 o'clock in the evening on the day of the incident, a man named He Bing had his wounds bandaged in the emergency department of the hospital. The police found the attending doctor to understand the situation. According to the doctor's recollection, the man had stab wounds on the index and middle fingers of his right hand, and there were bruises on his legs. At that time, the doctor also asked, "Hey, how did you get this injury?" He just said that he was injured by a steel bar in the steel bar factory. The doctor felt suspicious when he saw it, but he didn't say anything. His injuries didn't look like they were caused by steel bars. They were obviously knife wounds. He obviously lied. But it's better to have one less thing to do in the eldest lady's house. The police immediately retrieved surveillance videos from various parts of the hospital to look for Hebing. Through identification, the police captured Hebing's figure in 2 surveillance images inside and outside the hospital. Through careful research and comparison, the police found that the man entering and exiting the crime scene in the surveillance footage extracted near the crime scene was relatively thin. In the 2 surveillance footage in the hospital, the man named Hebing was obviously taller. Much stronger. What's going on? The video of the bandage in the hospital is very clear, and you can see that he is a very strong and burly person. So the police began to wonder, are these 2 people the same person? Because it can be seen from the surveillance footage that there is a dark figure entering and exiting the crime scene, and the person found in the hospital is consistent with the forensic inference. But by comparing the surveillance images, we can see that these 2 people are definitely not the same person and have different body shapes. So what is the problem? Just as the case was finally being solved, the clues were interrupted again. On August 13, 2015, facing the interrupted clues, the task force reorganized the case. According to the forensic doctor's previous inference, the murderer should be relatively strong, which would match Hebing's body shape. The police were divided on whether the thin man who entered the crime scene was Hebing. After repeated discussions, the police raised another possibility. Could it be that the poor lighting at night and the angle of the surveillance camera caused the surveillance picture at the crime scene to be distorted? In order to verify this hypothesis, the task force decided to conduct a new simulation exercise on the night of the crime scene surveillance. Among the police, find someone with a similar build to Hebing and choose to go to the scene during the time of the crime and the same lighting conditions. As soon as this fat policeman appeared on the surveillance screen, the policeman on the task force suddenly realized, hey, how could such a fat and strong person look so thin walking in that area? Through repeated tests and comparisons, it has been basically determined that the suspicious man entering and exiting the crime scene should be Hebing. So the police immediately launched an investigation into Hebing. Hebing said that he was injured at the construction site, and thinking of the crime scene, didn't he run towards the farmland? Beyond the farmland is the village, and there is a construction site next to the village. The police came to the construction site near the crime scene with the hospital surveillance screenshots. After identifying the construction site, the person in charge said, "Oh, this is Hebing. He usually lives in a nearby village. Although he has been working with me for 7 or 8 years, he suddenly resigned recently for some reason. The foreman also told me something. Oh, by the way, he has a card on him. It was a card he applied for in a supermarket near the construction site." The task force immediately visited the rental house where Hebing lived and the nearby supermarket. In a supermarket not far from Hebing's residence, the consumption records of Hebing's membership card were retrieved. It was found that about a week before the incident, he had come to this supermarket to buy fruit and a fruit knife. Through comparison, the police confirmed that the fruit knife purchased by Hebing was exactly the same as the fruit knife extracted from the crime scene. But at this moment, another group of police officers delivered disappointing news. They were looking for Hebing but could not find him. He had already left the rental house on the night of the incident. The police asked the landlord to open the house and found Hebing's clothes and shoes in the bathroom, soaking them in a bucket in the bathroom. After comparison, the pattern of the soles was completely consistent with the shoe prints extracted on site. At this point, the police finally confirmed that the suspect in this case was Hebing. On the 5th day after the incident on August 16, 2015, Hebing had already fled to Jiangxi. However, after continuous fighting by the police, Hebing was successfully captured and brought to justice. After Hebing was caught, his DNA was collected and compared with the bloodstains on the fruit knife at the scene of the crime. It was finally confirmed that the DNA matched perfectly. In the face of irrefutable evidence, Hebing confessed to his criminal behavior. So, was Hebing hired by Su Feng's husband to kill Wang Guiping and Su Feng? As soon as Hebing confessed, the police felt a little incredible. He said he had been drinking that night and got the urge. After he saw a man and a woman entering the construction site, he suspected that they were going to have some abnormal relationship, so he wanted to go in and threaten them, and then extort some money. After wandering for a long time, he finally settled on the target. Wang Guiping was older and Su Feng was a woman. He thought he could successfully succeed, but unexpectedly he encountered fierce resistance from the 2 people. As soon as he entered the room, he directly asked what your relationship was. When he threatened others, Wang Guiping also had a bad temper. He picked up a stool and hit Hebing, and at the same time asked Su Feng to call the police. Seeing Su Feng pick up the phone, Hebing panicked, then raised the knife in his hand and swung it at Su Feng. Then Wang Guiping shouted, and Hebing stabbed Wang Guiping from the side. After stabbing Wang Guiping, he ran away in panic. The police speculated that Huang Guiping planned to chase the murderer after being stabbed, but in the end he collapsed on the aisle outside the workshed due to excessive blood loss. At that time, Su Feng was cut with a knife, and she might not have died immediately. She called Yao Ling in a short time, but because the injured area was her neck, she couldn't make a sound after her neck was chopped off. According to He Bing's confession, he said he never expected that he would reach this point and that it was his impulse that led to the tragedy. In less than 70 seconds, 2 people were brutally murdered. So why isn't there more flipping of the scene? Because he was too scared, he ran away, but took the handbag Huang Guiping carried with him. In one thought, he killed 2 people and embarked on a road of no return. In the end, He Bing was also sentenced to death according to law.